up so high, I have no worries. You did not hide your face, did not turn me away. Of you, Lord, I will sing and tell my story. You've got a love so pure, it pulls me in for sure. It's all consuming. Your gentle lovingness washes away my mess. It proves you truly love the real me. Behold the beauty of the Lord. Whoa. It washes me whiter than snow. Whoa. Oh, this I know for sure. Your love makes me pure. Come wash over me and make me clean. Behold the beauty of the Lord.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Recovery Unplugged Live. We have Amy McCorkle, the fine host of the show, and we're kicking off Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have Dr. Aimee Damarus with us this evening. And Amy, you are an author and licensed psychotherapist. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Always a pleasure. Always fun.
You sure?
Let's find out.
Yeah, right. We'll find out
down.
tonight. This is a more freeform show than the last one you were on. Isn't that right, Amy?
Mm-hmm.
Amy Leigh?
Yes, it is.
A little more conversational?
Yeah, I'm trying to ease into that because it just, it's just learning and getting better at it.
Yeah.
So, this month, I just find it absolutely hilarious because I started this, this is our 5th season.
Mm-hmm.
And last week kicked off our first episode of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this, and then one of my heroes started doing something called MB State of Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with him just going in his car and playing music on Instagram and then just talking. And then all of a sudden he's interviewing people on YouTube, and it's about mental health. And I'm thinking that is hilarious that there's that parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And and what he does is he interviews like his co-stars and stuff like that, and I think the more and I think it's not like, oh, he's copying me or I'm copying him. I think the more shows you have like ours with different angles and perspectives, because I look at it through the prism of your career too. Mm-hmm. I think especially for a month like there can't be too many shows like this,
right.
Especially right now when they consider there's a crisis, a mental health care crisis
mm-hmm.
in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So, John, do you have any questions?
Well, what's new in your world, Amy?
Well, we got accepted into the the Great Las Vegas Asian Film Awards. That's a part of AOF. Letters to Daniel did.
Okay.
And I am nominated for People's Choice Screenwriter of the Year down in Orlando for ICFF. And the executive who is the studio / executive who is developing the film, aka Gemini Rising, it's now called The Assassin's Redemption, starring Annabelle Monroe, who we had on last week. And he said, TC Stallings and nothing's guaranteed. You need to go down there. And I'm like, how am I going to come up with this money? I'm not. I was like, what do you, Joshua? I am not like you, where everybody pays my way, so, or my company does. But he is an interesting person, and since he totally got behind all my projects, I have nothing but great things to say about him. And he wouldn't tell me to go down there and attempt to get TC Stallings' interest as Winter Grayson if he didn't think. But it turns out TC's not going to be there, but that I can say he's expressed interest in the project and wants to be kept in the loop as it gets developed. To those of you who don't know who TC Stallings is, he is probably most well known for Ty Mann's. There's a movie called My Brother's Keeper, and he was originally on his movie was called Redeemed, and it was on BET Plus, and it was an original production, and it was also distributed by Green Apple, so that probably helps a lot too. So that's what's new with me.
Cool. Say hi to Sophia Louisa. She's watching and said huge congrats.
Hey, Sophia. I hope you and Olivia are doing well. That's her daughter.
Oh.
I figured.
You figured. And everything's getting. I want to talk about something, Conquering Disabilities with Film, International Film Festival.
Okay.
I want to reiterate, our big, huge Screenwriter of the Year prize is Cindy Cowan. Is offering a 6-month mentorship in the Hollywood production process, or in the development process, and you have a chance to possibly be sent to contacts at the end of that period, and you can't buy that's just huge. And and the reason why it's huge is because she's the producer behind such things as Traffic with Michael Douglas and Topher Grace, directed by Steven Soderbergh. 3 Oscars: Best Director, Best Screenplay, and I can't remember Best Supporting Actor. And she also did If These Walls Could Speak or Talk, I can't remember which one, and that included Demi Moore and Anne Heche, and it was like an Oprah Winfrey kind of thing. And another thing is she did a documentary called 42nd Street, which was about a building on 42nd Street, a motel that they turned into a home for AIDS, people who had AIDS and were living out the last parts of their lives.
Woo!
Which is a faith-based streaming service, and they will be offering 2 distribution deals as well through our film festival. So we're super, and for AOF, there's people such as Michael Jai White coming, who is a martial artist and super kind of action star, and I want to say Louis Teague, who directed Cujo, and I can't remember the other one, but and Jillian White, who has been on I can't remember. Blackish is the one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's with AOF, and it's like under the umbrella. And I just recommend anybody who has scripts, movies, photography, books, nonfiction, fiction. They will also be offering, if you want to get a vendor table for for 2 days, it's $250, and for the whole time it is $500 or $600. I'll have to double check my paper to be sure. But if anybody out there has submitted and gotten accepted in, and you have a book you want to sign, you want to sell at this vendor table, that's an opportunity that AOF is presenting to you. So with that, maybe I was going to say, so Amy,
Yes.
how is your book selling in the marketplace? How's it being received?
I feel like it's going really, really well, especially for a first book. Sales rank on Amazon, last time I checked, was 22 out of all their books on bipolar, which is pretty far, pretty high up. And then last time I checked, which I think was yesterday, I'm at 4.8 stars out of 5 in the reader reviews on Amazon. So I'm pretty happy.
Yes.
And it's at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Barbara's Bookstore, bookshop.org, which is kind of fun because they usually profit share with local bookstores.
Nice.
So you can kind of support your local bookstore and shop online at the same time. So it's going really well.
Why do you think that is? What do you think lends itself for the book, basically lends the book to such a nice reception?
Well, instead of being directed at people who have bipolar, it's for the families. I don't know if you were watching on Bipolar Girl, kind of those first episodes of season 2 when we did that sort of talk show format thing. And I had asked some of the other guests, okay, what have been your experiences? What has your family done to support you in your recovery from bipolar? What's the most supportive thing people have done for you? And they're looking at each other, and there was dead silence. And that's a pretty common experience, I think, with anybody who suffers from a serious mental illness. Sometimes the family is genuinely abusive or neglectful, but what I was finding out was sometimes they just didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say, had no idea what skills or knowledge they might need. So I put the book together, and some of the reviews are really touching. This is helping, my husband understand and empathize with me better. I bought this book for my doctors so they'd get my actual real world experience. It's helping people kind of communicate their real world experience of bipolar disorder, and also talking specific skills that you can use to support somebody. So I think that's really resonating with people.
Okay.
According to the reviews, that's what people seem to find most important.
So do you find, do people where have you done book signings? I know with COVID, you kind of have to get creative. So what have you done by means of promoting this out into not just the mental health community, but into the society and community at large?
I've contacted a few people and been able to arrange some talks on the subject, a professional society that I'm part of, just a local Chicago professional society threw a book signing party for me when it came out, which was fun. I have a blog, or not a blog, but I'm a contributor to a British blog called PsychReg, Psychology Registry. So I've been able to put a few pieces in there. Sometimes, like, a journalist will call me and ask for a comment on some story related to mental illness. And if it's relevant, depending on the editorial standards, I might even be listed in there as, author of Understanding Bipolar Disorder. So a lot of it's just been kind of like hustling for media, contacting bookstores to see who might be willing to sponsor a book signing, or organizations that might be interested in sponsoring a talk.
Okay, would you say your book is written towards the understanding of everybody, like the lay language, as opposed to the technical jargon? Well, I'm going to suggest you submit that. You can submit that to my festival, or you can submit it to AOF.
Cool.
I highly recommend doing that and taking advantage of the opportunity. And if you get accepted, take advantage of the vendor table. I was gonna do it, but I'm like $250. I'm going everywhere to sell my movies, so it's like debate. Like, what do I do? What do you think the media's reception has been of this, and where have you been fortunate enough? Have you done traditional media, like talk show, like radio shows? Have you been on local networks, national networks? Where have you been?
One of the most receptive areas has been kind of online print media, different kinds of wellness sites, news sites, any place that they're looking for somebody who's expert in that area, maybe to comment on current events in some cases, or to comment on an information article or provide some information for an article on mental illness. That's probably been the biggest part of my media share. Couple of like local cable access type talk shows. There was one in California that I had a great time on. The Sharifa show, she really knows how to draw stuff out of you. You find yourself saying, oh, why did that come out of my mouth? But okay.
Well,
and then lots of podcasts.
Lots of podcasts, yes. Mm-hmm. And I think we both have a mutual friend in the Bipolar Girl podcast. When I was on there, I don't know, I was just loosey goosey, and they usually preface, don't curse on this. And it seemed like I was salty that night. So I enjoyed Stephen and Rebecca on the Bipolar Girl. And of course I interviewed them on here, and they were fascinating and just incredible people. How did you could get in contact with them? How did you come to know them?
We found each other on Twitter. I don't even remember like who followed who first, but then we were mutuals, seeing each other's posts for a while. They invited me onto their show a couple of times. And of course I was doing what I could to promote them in return. And then I think I introduced them to you, and you had them on the show, and they had you on their show, correct?
Correct. They had me on their show, and then I made sure I had them on mine.
Yeah.
So have you thought how to create, how do you hope this is going to help the mentally ill artists? What do you hope they take away from your book, and take away from your book, and how it can help them both personally and professionally?
Personally, just to feel understood by other people, to have this book that you can hand to people or lend to people, or just show them your copy and say, this is what's happening with me. To be able to have them understand your internal experience, to have someplace people can go for accurate kind of scientific information, research-based information. It's written in a way that most people will be able to understand. It's not in grand high academic.
Right.
I tried to make it as conversational as possible. So for the artist, that would also be, a source of accurate information that they could use to kind of check their book, their script, their whatever against, their performance. Okay, am I getting this reasonably accurate? And then just with kind of the different descriptions of what everyday life is like with bipolar, could maybe help inform a writer or an artist if they wanted.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that would be awesome if it would actually make a difference in how people are portrayed in film and TV and in books.
Okay. So you hope, that's one thing you hope comes out of this book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you think of movies that
Mm-hmm.
portray mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
what are some, there are some that, often you see drug and alcohol addiction
Mm-hmm.
portrayed. Some of the more popular movies kind of romanticize it a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. What are some good examples of films, whether they be narrative, meaning fiction,
Mm-hmm.
or like based on true stories, like A Beautiful Mind,
Mm-hmm.
or or a documentary? So an actual documentary. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some movies that you could point directors and filmmakers
Mm-hmm.
and writers to, and also actors to? Because so the floor is yours.
Okay, so you mentioned A Beautiful Mind. I do really like that one. It is prettied up quite a lot, but they don't shy away from kind of his internal experiences, but it's also kind of a high-end academic, a famous scientist. So it's not that representative of the average person's experience. If we're getting away from just bipolar,
any serious mental illness, because I want this show to help everybody.
Mm-hmm. Call me crazy, but one thing I really love is how many of the Marvel movies portray some kind of a disability, including mental disabilities. There are all these characters with PTSD.
Yeah.
Even like the ultimate alpha, Tony Stark, portrayed as having PTSD.
I think a big example, they talked about that when they broke down WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Especially Sebastian Stan's performance to me was, both his and Elizabeth Olsen's performances were really good and at points really raw.
Yeah.
And not to say anything, I think Anthony Mackie had his moments too, and because he's becoming Captain America and he's got to come to terms with what this means for him. So all Marvel characters, especially if you think after Infinity War and Endgame, all have PTSD. They're going to.
Right.
How can they survive something like that and not have it?
Right.
So,
and pretty much all the Marvel characters have some kind of disability, some physical, like Doctor Strange, for example, although he's clearly got narcissistic personality disorder too. Love him so much though. But yeah, with Bucky, for one thing, we need to have a talk about his god-awful therapist, because no. Hell no. That would take an entire episode by itself. I was like, look, every single therapist on Sherlock, all of which were terrible, was actually better than her, including Sherlock's murdery sister. So, with Sebastian Stan.
I was going to say, I noticed something because I'm on Twitter and I follow I'm friends. I follow whatever the term is for the platform. I follow Charlotte. She's bipolar blogger. At Bipolar Blogger. And she does not mince words when it comes to the British mental health system. And
Good for her.
Yeah, she does not cut them any slack.
Mm-hmm.
And she does, and then there are others who follow her and they're like, yeah, right. I'm like, dude, am I just fortunate? Like, I still had, like, even in my movie, you could see I still had trouble finding help, but eventually I did.
Uh-huh.
And it just seems to be such a stigmatizing subject, no matter what country
Mm-hmm.
you go into. And culturally, it's just different for everybody. And there's so many different factors that go in. Why not talk about that? So
Yes.
what is your perspective on that?
Well, from what I've learned about the British system, there can be up to a 6-month waiting list for a therapist. So you're
Ugh.
in a serious depression, you're in the middle of a manic episode. Depending on how you cycle, you could be 2 episodes down the road, 3 episodes down the road by the time you get to a therapist.
God, your
Like,
life could
okay,
be
you're
just
coming in for mania. No, that was 6 months ago.
right.
I've been
Your
depressed,
life.
manic, and hypomanic since then.
Yeah.
So,
Lord have mercy.
but we're not in much better shape in the United States right now. Before the pandemic, yeah, but I'm getting 6 or 7 referrals a week, and I already have a full schedule. I'm not even
Right.
close to being able to accommodate
That's
everybody.
good. How are you handling this personally? Because I know for me, I need my therapist, I need my psychiatrist in order to get through this. But I know it's funny because on the other side of it, you're listening to everybody and guiding them. How are you handling it as a therapist, and how do you handle that personally, emotionally?
I mean, you have to be able to step away. Like, there's a couple of things. Like, in my spare time, like, I am mind-bogglingly frivolous. I don't watch serious movies unless it's like for research or for something I'm writing. Don't talk to me about any movies with like serious trauma in it or anything like that, because I need a break. And that actually makes me a lot more fortunate than a lot of the clients I work with. They don't get a break from this. They don't get to be, it's okay, it's 6:00. I'm out.
Right. I don't get to say it's 6:00. Bye-bye, bipolar. I don't
Right?
need, right.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Maybe we'll have that medication one day. I'm reading a really interesting book on the neurobiology of bipolar, where they're talking about like some of the research right now that could improve the medications. But
but the one thing I have mixed feelings about pharmaceuticals. I think they can be a huge. I think I have to have them in order to stay stable. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's recovery looks different, but I understand there is such a thing as big pharma. They're in the business of managing it, not finding a cure. But I know there are people out there who want to find a cure. Now, what I want to know is, does that cure, there's like these aspects of my illness that I don't know if it's me or if it's the disease. And I'm like, I write incredibly fast. I'm incredibly productive. I can write. And so I've learned I call it riding the wave. Like when I'm on the downside, take a break or edit. But whenever I'm up, take care, those flight of ideas before they become a tangle in us. So what would you say to someone like me who says, I know if there's a cure, I know there's the shitty parts of bipolar are so shitty.
Oh my God, yeah.
That I'd be a fool not to at least see what this impending cure was. But there's that part of me that is it, and I think it's human nature to be afraid that I've built this thing and I don't want to watch it go away because I take a pill. And I don't know if that's just paranoia or
no.
What would you say?
That is an entire part of the bipolar journey, because people do find themselves so productive, so creative, like you said, riding that wave. And so a lot of people want to try and keep that kind of balance where I want to get better to the point where I'm not having, the shitty parts,
Right.
but I want to, stay bipolar enough that I don't get blunted. Like my creativity, my drive, my passion doesn't get blunted. And that's especially true of people who have more the hypomanic type, where it's at least somewhat under control.
But hypomania is still dangerous. I mean, I'm going to be honest. The only thing I can think is I had a spending spree.
Mm-hmm.
I had my bank account was connected to my PayPal, and it began hemorrhaging.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, something's wrong. I got to tell someone. So I immediately disconnected PayPal from my bank, and I'm about to close my bank account, and all I have is my PayPal, and I have in my direct deposit put there, because I think having a bank account and credit cards are so dangerous for someone like me, because if I get obsessed or fixated, I can, right? And I just don't want to run that risk. So that's just some FYI. So it's like, I'm not perfect.
I mean, right now, that's more of a therapy goal. The medications can't do that. They're so imprecise right now.
Right.
Like you said, they affect everybody differently. Like that whole statement, everybody's recovery is different. There's also a question of, shouldn't we have medications that are so reliable?
Yeah.
That a person can get the result they want.
Yeah, it's like, can it be like Tylenol, right?
Right, exactly what I was thinking.
Like it's like acetaminophen that most people, as long as you don't abuse it, right? So that, to me, I just want people to know, even though my life is exciting and all this good stuff is happening, I'm having to manage this part of it. It's always there. Like you said, there's no point where you have to keep your guard up. It's because that's one of the shitty parts. And I've gotten in, it's been a while since I've gotten into that kind of a financial mess. And, but I've got it cleared up. So, think like, right. But in the past, I might have hid it because I was embarrassed or ashamed or, and I hope hearing me talk about it is freeing for someone else. What advice would you give to someone who did have a spending spree experience, and now mine is pretty tame. I've heard even way larger sums, but mine was stressful enough to freak me out. Yeah. So what advice would you give someone who's coming back from something like that?
Just to recognize it's going to be a hard time, but you are going to get out of this, to try and break it down into kind of specific tasks, specific amounts that you can do that feel manageable and less overwhelming. Let's say you went on a spending spree of $10,000. It's a lot of money, super scary. And that anxiety is so real and understandable. What can you be doing? Like if it was my client, okay, we can't change it now. Let's put a plan together. And then, in the future, maybe find a trusted friend or family member. Be tracking your moods. And when you see that your moods are rising to that point where you might go on another spending spree, maybe consider giving your cards to somebody else for the time being until your moods come down. And you get just kind of a regular allowance or enough to pay the bills or put the bills on direct debit to make sure the mistake doesn't happen again.
That's very good advice. I went and got my money once my account was back in the red. I said, I'm closing this out. So I went out and got the money, the cash out. And unfortunately I have a PayPal cash card, which I only have as much as I have in my PayPal account. So it's not like I have a credit card, it acts as a credit card. It won't spend what's not in there.
It's actually a great idea. Have like a bipolar specific account that has enough money in it, but you can't go overboard. Yeah. That's a great idea.
So You have seen, so I'm going to ask, have you seen Letters to Daniel?
Yes.
And would you tell the audience what you thought of Megan's portrayal of someone with bipolar disorder? And if she's been nominated 6 times and has so far won 3.
It was very real. I liked it that, there was definitely kind of a positive message that you could recover there, but it told that story without shying away from kind of the ugly, gritty parts. It didn't have that kind of toxic positivity. As long as you take your nice meds and do your nice therapy, everything's going to be wonderful and pretty. I thought it was a great portrayal because she managed to kind of ride that line of hope and gritty reality.
I thought she was wonderful because I said, you've got to be sympathetic and empathetic, but at the same time, show what is when it can get really ugly.
Yes.
And she can, because, I did not treat Missy always, as you saw in the movie, always as well as she should have been treated. So, and what did you think of Miss Feld as Missy? She was like the caregiver. She was like the best friend. How do you think their chemistry played out on screen?
That's always such a difficult relationship because, like you just pointed out, sometimes the caregiver takes a lot that they shouldn't have to take. But if they understand that it's part of a disorder and they see it as such, they can do it. And I thought it was really deep and intense in the way that, she kind of had to struggle with the ways it was difficult for her and still try to be there and be real with it at the same time that kind of like the character that was you that was kind of trying to was saying things, doing things that, like you said, weren't necessarily good, were not going to turn out well, and was eventually going to have to come back from that, and they were going to have to kind of rewrite the relationship kind of over and over as things happen, and then you have to heal from them.
It's like Missy said, it's that have anything to add?
I can just say I appreciate the way that you're able to take, and you said it a couple times, the scientific language and break it down into layman's terms, for lack of a better word. And it sounds like that you have a really good ability to do that. When did you realize the importance of needing to do that in your work?
Really early on. You know, you go through school, they teach you a lot of the technical language. You go try and talk to clients like that, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, all these words you're using, I have no idea how that connects to my life.
Yeah, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah.
Right. So, and I went to a school that from the beginning taught us you have to put it into regular language, into layman's language as much as possible. But even then,
you still don't get it till you're out there.
Right. And when you've talked to people who have a disorder, what words do you use? How do you describe your experiences? You read their memoirs, you see their movies, and you start to connect the scientific terms, the terms you use in the treatment plan, with these very real world descriptions.
Very nicely put.
Now, what's the name of your book? And where can they find it?
Understanding Bipolar Disorder, The Essential Family Guide. It's in a lot of bookstores. It's in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstore.org. I think at least online it's on Target and Barbara's Bookstore, which is kind of local here to Illinois.
Cool. And if you have any links that you want us to attach to the VOD version of today's show, just make sure you send them to Amy, and I'll get them in the description.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on again. Good to see you.
You too. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for helping us kick off Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's up next, Amy?
I think I'm going, since it's, it's Monday and it's not like that, like I waited till Sunday and went, oh crap, I need someone for tomorrow. To celebrate, kind of join the thing with mental health awareness. And Isaac has this opinion, you are what you watch. And so it'd be interesting to get his insights as to how our viewing habits translate into Isaac, to say who Isaac is, Isaac Hernandez is one of the executive producers of The Guardian Sacrifice, who signed on. He is also a former TVN and Parables executive who, before Parables went under, helped get Letters to Daniel on there. But at the end of this month, it will be no more on Parables TV.
Gotcha.
But Isaac is an amazing person, and I think he agreed to do an interview, so it's just a matter of getting in touch with them and lining it up.
Gotcha. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in. Especially thanks to Sophia for letting us know that she was here and giving Amy congratulations and otherwise just being a supportive effort for us. And we will see the rest of you next Monday. And so this was Recovery Unplugged live tonight with Dr. Amy Damarus. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me on. And
we will put your links out there so everyone can know how to get a hold of you and buy your book.
Great, thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming on Recovery Unplugged Live, and we will see you next week. We're going to leave with Old King Cole. A trailer for a film directed by whom, Amy?
Del Weston, Annabelle Monroe, Lorraine Ooh, and I think Aaron Miracle too. So I think I got it right.
Is it screening at AOF this year, or is it still in production?
I don't know where it's screening first. To be honest, there might be a special screening of it through AOF, but I'm not too clear on all that right now.
Gotcha.
But once I find out for sure, I'll be telling it on here.
There you go, everyone. So let's watch the trailer, and we'll see you all next week. for another episode of Recovery Unplugged Live.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
Upside down and shaking all around. There seemed no end inside. I thought I was losing. I remember what you say. You've got a place for me. Protection from the storm. It's you I'm choosing.